In today's show, we're going to learn about PowerApps responsive components. So the idea here is we're going to build a header and a footer, and the footer we're actually going to use for debugging. So we're going to put some special information down there and kind of toggle it on and off. So should be fun. But first, here's our intro. Hi, my name is Shane Young with PowerApps 911. Those guys. And today, we're going to talk about responsive components in PowerApps. So the idea here is that we're building out a fully responsive app, right? We demoed the app last time. We went through it. I'll show you a quick demo again here. But as we're building through that, we got the welcome screen. And so now before we start to build all the child screens with the galleries, we're going to need to have the header and the footer. So we're going to build a header and footer, make those responsive. We're going to have them accept inputs so that way they can be dynamic, talk about some of that. And then with the footer especially, we're going to get into some of the different size properties. Because one of the things I've found, like when I'm teaching other people to do responsive, is sometimes just putting the numbers and information on the screen gives you the light bulb of what's broken. So I'm going to show you how I am building those into my apps so that we have a better way to do it. Cool, should be fun. So let's just switch over to my desktop and take a look. All right, over here on my desktop, right, I've got the app open that we built in the last video. And if you didn't watch that video, click on the link up there and it'll take you, right? I think it'll give you some more context of what all this is. And so if you remember from our demo app, let's just switch right here. So I have the demo app currently in iPad Air sizes, right? And turned horizontally. We can flip it with this little button. Back to this, we talked about this the last video. But when we go into the different screens, so if I click on the edit data screen, over here, you notice we've got the standard header, right? So we got a little company logo. We've got the now with editing, like some type of header text for the screen and a back button. The back button does what we expect it to do. And it also, more importantly, it resizes. So if we change this, right, it got more narrow to go with what was going on. And if we were to switch down to the phone size, not only does it get more narrow, but the font got smaller. So we're going to build all of that functionality. The other fun thing here, if we go back, down here we had this toggle we put in the last time. And so this toggle is something that I use, and this is the aha moment for my makers, right? When I'm trying to teach someone new how to do this, sometimes just being able to see what's going on helps. So we can just quickly toggle this on. And so then now if we go back over here to edit data, you can see that we're screen size 1, our width, our height, our main gallery width. We got information here because sometimes you need to test in the real player. You need to go put it on your phone and test it and see why is it acting weird on your phone versus this test phone, for example. And by toggling this on or off, gives you the ability to see it both ways. Also here you might notice, like, so if we change the orientation, look at that. So now the width and the height are different. So we're able to really in real time see. And if we hit the edit button, right? Once again, this all shrank, or the screen all stayed the same, but the gallery size has changed. So all of these things are evolving as we go. So that's what we're going to build today, is this top part and this bottom part. So then finally in the next video, we'll be able to start building the middle, right? Working on responsive galleries, but that's not for today. Today is just all about responsive headers, footers, and components, right? Okay. Also remember, if that app I was just demoing interests you, you can always go download that. If you go to training.powerapps911.com and click on the YouTube library, subscribers over there or to any of my training classes have access to the full libraries and they can download those things. All right, that's enough. What I want to do now is we're back in here. This is the app that we built in the first video that I linked to a minute ago. And so what we want to do is we want to add that next screen, right? So new screen, make a blank screen. And so now we know we want to start adding the pieces in here to this. And before we can add the components, we got to build the components. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on components over here. You're going to see that we're dropped into the new component screen. And so we'll say new component. Now it automatically sizes itself out, right? And that's because my primary app is 640. So, but we can change these numbers. And so I think in this case, let's just try like leaving it 640, but we're going to set the height here. In reality though, what I want to do is I want to set the width to be dynamic. So we're going to, when we put this on the screen, its width is actually going to be its parent. So we'll say width here. And so instead of 640, we're going to say parent.width. But you notice here, you can't do that, right? So you're like, oh, it doesn't work. That's okay. So we're going to give it the static width like we just talked about. And then when we add it over on the other screen, that's when we're going to assign its width to actually be parent.width. So this is just the width of what we're building on. I guess we should also just double click over here and rename this thing. We'll call this header. All right, so that kind of gets us the first piece of this. Now in the header, we're going to want it to be responsive. So in order for it to be responsive, we're going to need to hit our insert menu here and then go over here to layouts. And we're going to need to do a vertical container, right? Because we want to do the same thing. Just like we're building a new screen, we're going to build vertically and then horizontally. So we'll have a vertical container like so. This container, what is its height? Its height is going to be parent.height and its width is going to be parent.width. Now, in reality, my heights aren't going to be dynamic, so I didn't really need to do the height portion, but whatever. And then you'll notice here I can easily be scooted over, and so then I would just go over here and just do 0 and 0, so that way it's in the corner, right? So that's your main layout container. So then in this container, right, the vertical container, I want to have on this top row a logo and a back button. So how are we going to put two things side by side? Well, we're going to do a horizontal container. So we're going to put a horizontal container inside our vertical container. So if we look at the tree view, that should look like that. Perfect. And so in this horizontal container, I want to say, hey, your height, I don't want it to be flexible. I don't want you to use all space. Turn that off. I just want you to be a hard-coded 100. Okay? So that would get me that top row. And then the second row here, we're going to just have the label, right? So we don't have to put that inside of a container because one label is going to take up the whole thing. So we'll just do an insert and make sure you're not in the this container. I want to put it in here. So I'm going to click back on the parent container and we're going to insert a label. And so with this one, I'm going to say the same type of thing. For your width, I want you to be parent.width, right? Take up the whole thing. For your height, let's just go ahead and set you to 100 for right now. We're just going to hard code it because we got two, right? We made it 200 total. So the first one's 100. So we want this one to be 100. We could play with that. One of the things you might end up doing, let's have a little fun here. One of the things you might do is you might say, you know what? I really just want this to be whatever this one leaves over, right? So what could you do? You could just say your width is what? Parent.height minus container, I can't spell container 4.height, which will also be 100, right? So 200 minus 100, we end up getting 100 for this as well. But the nice thing now is we decide that really for this container, instead of its height being 100, we want it to be 125, like so, then this one automatically does. So not really necessary in this scenario, but remember, we're trying to learn all the skills so we can be better at building responsive. So learning to think creatively like that sometimes is a good little point to go. All right, so there's that. Maybe I want to change this text alignment to be centered. All right. So then back up here in this container, so we need two things. We need the image and we need the back button. All right, so the first thing we'll do is just go up here to media, insert an image. Ooh, way too big. We'll say your height is actually going to be, what do we say, 125? We could do 125, or maybe, right? We could just say, because we're trying to make everything tied to each other, your height is parent.height. Okay, and so then for the image, we're going to add an image, and then we'll just do like one of our company logos that's a little stretched out, because that's kind of the space that we've given ourselves here. So we'll do this one. So then now that should just take up the space. Boom, looks like what we want. And then with the container still selected here, we're going to then do an icon and we'll find our friend, the back icon. There we go. Now you notice that it jumps to that top left corner, right? And why is that? Because if we look at the container, it says justify things to the left and align them vertically. So that's why this tiny little guy is right there. What we could do here though, what if instead we click on the icon and say, you know what? I don't want you to follow his rules. So instead I'm gonna say I want you to be centered. All right, that's a little bit better. And then for the width here, we want it to stretch out, right? We want it to take more. So if we go back to the container, I'm gonna go and say justify horizontally. And so then that's going to push it out to the edge. Now I actually don't like it pushed out all the way to the edge. I want it backed over just a little bit. So then what I've been doing is just going here to the padding and saying, hey, you know what? I want you to have like 25 padding right, it moved it. Now, right now it's not big enough to support the 25 height, but that's okay because we're going to say, you know what, your height is going to be, let's do like 100 like that. And then your width will be 100. And so now it's a little bit bigger, right? And so you can start to fiddle with the sizes, but the padding, right? This icon is always going to be square. And so it's making itself square based on the rules I gave it. So if I wanted it to, have a little bit more height here, then I probably need to set the width to like 125 to account for that padding. And so now it's kind of filling out the space. So that is something you can play with. The other thing that you can do is you can play with the size based on your screen size, right? We're not going to do that here, but for one of the scenarios I had to do this. Basically, I wanted the icon to kind of vary based on the device size. And so I wrote a formula, or I made those an input, which we're going to see in a second with the text. But just think about that is like, yes, this is where we're at here, but all of these things, right? PowerApps just wants what PowerApps wants. So if you want the height to be dynamic, you don't want it just to be 100, you want it to be a variable that you pass in based on the size, then you can do that. You can change those types of things. So be creative as you're thinking about this. But there you go. There's my first row. So then my second row down here, we've got the text. And obviously right now the text is set to be just the word text. That's kind of boring. So what I want to do is I want to be able to change the text on every screen. So to do that, I'm going to click up here on the header, and we're going to add a custom property for the header. So new custom property, and we're going to call this header text because I'm very creative. And it'll be an input, and it'll be text. Perfect. Create. So now we can go back to this label, and we can say, hey, instead of you being the word text, I want you to be header text. And so whatever's in that property is what will be shown. If we were to go over here to header, you can look, if you want to change what the default is, see the header text, it defaults to text, right? But you could be like screen text goes here. So there you go. Now you know what goes there. And so then now, right, we've got enough. If we go back over here to our screens, we got this blank one. I want to make sure that it's responsive, right? And so how am I going to do that? I need to first just throw in a vertical container. Remember, every screen build kind of starts with that. We'll stretch it up here. And then we're going to say, hey, your height is what? Parent, oh, not 710. Parent.height. Your width is parent.width. Okay. And so then now that the container is ready, now back over here, we can say custom. And so there's that header component we just created. So there's the header. And look at that. It bolts right in. And if we want to change the screen text goes here, you click on the header itself and you click on header text. And so here we can change this to demo screen. Whatever you want it to be will show up. Now, if you're right, whoa, all this component stuff's happening fast. I'm kind of assuming you have a baseline with components. If you don't, there's there's a component video up there that would help you, think through that a little bit. But now what do we want to do? We want to make sure this at least works a little bit. So we're going to say play. And so it is shoved over in the corner. Let's kind of grab this. All right. So it is not doing what we want. Fair enough. So let's go right here. And so what did I not do? Well, if you click on the header, remember the width of the header is 640. Womp womp. What do we want? We want it to be parent.width. All right, so you have to change the component's width after you bring it over. Right? So every time you bring this header in, you got to set a couple of things. We're going to set a couple more things in a second. But now if you hit play, now look, it takes all the screen, right? So here's pushed left. This is pushed to the right. This is set in the middle because that's the way we designed it. And if you go to a smaller size, it still moves. Smaller size, it does more. I just realized I had to edit out one of my calendar pop-ups. Whoops. All right, so there you go. That is doing what we hoped it would do. That is a header. So if we go back over the components, now we're going to do this, I guess, this way. So this button, I always just want to take them back to where they came from. So for this button, I'm going to say on select, we're going to say, use the back function like so. So now, no matter where they're at or where they use this header, it will always just take them to the previous screen. That's the way I want this to be designed. But now this, I want it when you click on this to navigate you to the welcome screen of the app. So on select of this image, we should just be able to say navigate, well, or what do we call that screen? We called it screen 1. Navigate screen 1. Now I get an error. Why do I get an error? Because components don't understand the world outside of them. So I can't reference a control, or in this case, a screen that's inside the app from within the component. So if I want to be able to navigate there, I'm going to have to pass this in as another variable. So I'm going to click on header again. I'm going to say another new custom property. This time we're going to call it home screen. We're going to change the data type from this one from text to be a screen right there. We're going to say create. So then now we would go here and we'd say navigate to header dot home screen. So it's happy. If we look at this though, header text is right there. Home screen is app.activeScreen. So it's not going to do anything. It's just going to take them to the screen they're already on because it's the only screen PowerApps knows about. So what we're going to do when we come over here, when we're using this component, what I need you to do now is go here to home screen. Where do you want it to go? I want it to go to screen 1. So then now, no matter where you're at, right, if we click on this, it will take us to the home screen. Fun, right? Hopefully that's fun to you. But so that is how we start making that. So that's the key to making a good header component, is to make it as flexible as possible, right? Be able to take different inputs for all the things where you need it to act differently on different screens, because the core of it is probably going to stay the same. It's kind of a bummer here. We want them all to navigate to the welcome screen and we can't set that, but it is what it is. Okay, so then now down here under screen text, so right now you might notice the font size is 21. Now that is a good size on a mobile app, but it's kind of small if you're on a larger app. So what I have been doing in scenarios like this is I want to make this screen size, the font size dynamic as well. So back to header, back over here, we're going to say new custom property, and I'm going to say header font size, like so. This one is going to be a number. We're going to say create. And so then now we're going to say, hey, your size, right? So there should be a size property right here, is not just 21. It is header font size, which is currently set to 100. So let's go back over here. We'll say header font size, no, not header text, header font size. Instead of 100, we're going to make you 21. So that's the default. But then back over here, where we're using it, what we can do is we can say, hey, I want this. So if we look header font size, it's currently 21. We're going to say something like this. We're going to say, hey, if app.activescreen.size is, let's see, greater than, we'll just say greater than 1, then make it 42, else make it 21. So this is using the app breakpoints, right? So if you haven't learned about size or app breakpoints are a built-in feature of PowerApps where it basically returns the size as a number based on the width of the screen. So probably easiest thing to do is just go right here. So label on, and let's just say app.activescreen.size. And so when we hit play, look, right now the size is 4. If we start to shrink this thing up, it's 3. And if I go in tighter, it's 2. Oh, I went too far. It's 2. And then now it's 1. And notice the font size changes between 2 and 1. So we're getting that dynamic font size like we wanted. The way that these are constructed is if you click on your app itself, hidden up here at the top is size breakpoints. And so what this is saying is that if it is less than 1200 pixels wide, it is going to be a 1. 1200 to 1800 is 2, 1800 to 2400 is 3, 2400 and greater is a 4. So these size breakpoints are pre-built for you. Now you can change these, you can add your own, you can remove them, you can manipulate them. I'll be honest, I don't use them a lot at this point because I don't know why I don't use them, honestly. They just, I don't know. I sometimes, I mean, in this case, this is one of the scenarios where I do use it because I just know that basically if it's smaller than 1200, I want it. If I don't, I don't. But a lot of times, instead of writing a formula like we did here, I could have done something the same. I could have said if app.active width is greater than, let's do 1200. So this would give me the same exact behavior, right? When we go down here, so we're at 2, as soon as we hit the 1, we should see everything changes as we'd expect. This would give me the same behavior, but it doesn't, to me, it reads cleaner. It makes more sense to me, but Microsoft prefers we use app breakpoints. So unless you have a reason to do it this way, then let's do it. Sorry. Oh my goodness. Quick pressing button, Shane. Let's do it this way. So app active screen size, and just kind of think of, as 1 as your phone, 2 is the iPad, maybe vertically, 3 is the iPad, maybe wide, 4 is your big browser, right? That's kind of loosely how you think about them in your brain. But what you're going to see here in a minute when we build the footer component is we can better visualize this by putting the information on the screen, just dragging it around. So to that end, I feel like the header's kind of working. Let's go over and build a footer. Now the footer, let's switch over here and take a look at the footer. So the way that my footer works is, you might remember, when you click on the little toggle here, it actually puts it in the bottom center of the screen, right? Like when you first do it, it doesn't understand it, but when you switch screens, it now understands it goes in the middle. And if you go back to that screen, it goes where it goes. Well, maybe not. All right, that one's messed up. Anyway, so down here, it's in the middle. And so what we're putting in this one is just information for debugging. So in this case, I put the screen size, the screen width, the screen height for the first row. And the second row, what I did was I wanted to put in some contextual information. So I wanted to be able to give myself a way to input what went down there. Because one of the things I have a bad habit of doing when I'm trying to understand these is throwing a label just in the middle of the screen and publishing it so I can see it real fast. So I tried to make that a little bit more of a consistent experience. Okay, so to build that is pretty straightforward. We're gonna go back over here. We're gonna go back to components. We're just gonna do a new component. I'm gonna rename this one footer. And we'll just leave the size alone for a second. And what we're going to do first is we're just going to insert a label. And I'm going to grab this label. I'm going to stretch it across here. Now, I don't want to stretch it that way though, right? What do I want to do? I'm going to go down here to width and just say parent.width. Okay, so there you go. And so then now what I was doing here was I just wanted to put in for the text, we're just going to hard code a bunch of stuff, right? So we're going to just do something like screen, my goodness, I can't type, screen size. And then we're going to say, what do we say? app.activescreen.size. All right, so it'll go there. Notice it doesn't populate right now because app.activescreen doesn't exist inside of a component. So an ampersand again, an ampersand is that, boom, boom, boom. And then this one will do screen width, same type of thing. And then app dot, it's really annoying that app doesn't auto suggest in all places. Microsoft, if you're watching this, you should fix that. But there you go, there's the width. And then finally screen dot height. Like so, and then it's just going to be app.activescreen.height. Okay, so there's that. Now it's a little too big to fit on a screen that size, so we're just kind of shrink it down to about an 18. All right, and then I'm just going to kind of scroll this up a little bit and make it fit. And then I'm going to tell it to align center. Easy enough. So that should do that. And then now what I want to do is I'm going to have a second label. It's the same size. So I'm going to control copy, control paste. So control C, control V. I'm going to pull this one down, stack it underneath. And for this one though, I want this one to be completely dynamic. So I'm going to click on footer and we're just going to add a custom property for that. And so we'll call this footer text. I don't know, I'm very creative. And it's just input, it's just text, boom. And so then we'll go to this label right here and we'll say, hey, you are footer dot text. And then obviously it defaults to text. And then just so I don't get confused later, we'll go over here to footer text and we'll just change this to be like spot for dynamic info. Cool. Also with the footer selected here, I'm going to change its fill. So over here, we're going to click on fill. We'll click here. And earlier I just kind of did this pinkish reddish color. I just want something so it's on the bottom of the screen, like I know what is being taken up by that. Now, also here, you can see like it's too tall. I don't want it to be that tall. So if we look, this one is a height of 39. So let's just call that 40 in our head. So 80. So I'm just going to make the whole footer 80 tall. Boom. Pretty simple, right? Nothing too exciting. Just two labels that are set to parent.width. And when we then put this on the screen, we're going to obviously either adjust it or not, depending on how we feel about it. But all right, that's good. So now if we go back over here to header, or no, sorry, back over here to screens. And so on our screen too, remember we had our header at the top, we had this label. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change this label to say, hey, your height is flexible height, so he can just use as much as he wants. And then with container selected, now if we stick in our footer, it will consume its space at the bottom. And then, this guy's just eating the whole middle right now, right? This is where our gallery is going to go in the next video. But right now, I just need something to fill the space so it kind of hung out the bottom like we'd expect. Now, remember with this one, you can either, there's two different ways to do this. You could either come in here and just do width and then be like, hey, parent.width. So then it would stretch the whole thing. But if you remember over here, I just left it in the middle. I don't know why I chose to do that, but I did. So just to replicate exactly that, I would leave it here. But then I'm going to make sure that its alignment in container, right? Alignment in container should be center. And that's, if you remember, looking over here, like what I did wrong on this screen was I didn't align it to center, it's aligned left. That's why it's sticking over here on the left. And it confused me. I need to fix that. But that should work. So now what we can do is we can hit play. Look at that. It's in the bottom middle. If we kind of take it and resize things a little bit, there it is. Now, what's fun about this though, is notice, so like this is currently sitting at screen size 2, screen width 1713 pixels, screen height 801. If I drag it a little bit, now it's screen size 3, width is 2051, height is still 801. And then the spot for dynamic info, what I wanted to do there, let's see, let's go out of here. Now, when you do this, you kind of see that it like gets all mad at you sometimes. If it gets mad at you, the easiest thing to do, if your sizes are funny, is click off that screen and back to that screen. So just a little trick I learned. Okay, so then for the dynamic info, what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, down here, what I really want in your footer.text, I want to know how tall label 7 is. How much space is it using? So then I can do label 7.height. And so then now when we play, look, label 7 is currently 1747. Shrink it up a little bit. Label 7 is now 521. And so what I was finding is that when I was trying to troubleshoot, and you're going to see that as we play with the gallery and we're trying to figure out like where one gallery is versus another, being able to just control what information I put in the second one was just giving me more tips as I was trying to troubleshoot my problems. And the great thing about it now that we've kind of done this, right? Let's go out here, back to full size again. Now that we've got this working, what we're going to do is we go back over here to screen 1. And so we already have our toggle. So it's called toggle 1. Let's just rename that to TGL footer. And so then now if we go back over here, what's really interesting is if we take our footer, we're going to set its visible property to be what? Toggle.footer.value. So if the toggle is on, then this would be true, it would show up. If the toggle is off like it is right now, then it doesn't show up. So now if we go back to screen 1, if we turn the toggle on, we go back over here, our footer's here. We go back over here, turn it off, our footer's not. So that's important to understand. Now another piece of this, we're gonna give a little bonus tip. I know the video is long, but I wanted to show this anyway. If I click on this label, so another thing that I was doing a lot of to help me visualize is if I'm having a hard time understanding what room this label is taking up, or the galleries is what I was fighting with, going here to color, I'm going to set the fill to just be some random green color. Okay. Why? Because now when I play the app, right, I can see, oh, well, I can see that that is currently just taking up over here, right? And it's going all the way to the bottom. We go back over to this, turn it on. Now, oh, I don't have a way to navigate there. Boo. I should make one of these buttons navigate, shouldn't I? There you go. You navigate to screen 2. Navigate screen 2. Thank you. Play again. And so then now when I press this button, you can see where the green is. So I know what space the label's taking up versus this is taking up, right? And so by setting those different containers or different objects to have a background fill when you're trying to understand and troubleshoot, another one of those moments that really help you see what's going on. Okay, so there you go. We got a good header, we got a footer, and we got a way to toggle off and on the footer, based on when we want to see it. You also might be thinking, well, Shane, I don't want my users to see the footer. That is totally fair. So what if you had some type of admin property? Or what if you told this control it was only visible if you were logged in, right? Like if I only wanted to be logged in show when I was logged in, I could go over here. And so we're going to click on toggle footer and we could set it's visible. And we would say user.email, which is my email, equals Shane at PowerApps911.com. And so then it would only show up if the email was mine, right? So if I wanted to show up for Chewy, we change this to Chewy. And now I don't see the button. Well, so I click off of it. I don't see the button. It's like it's not there. So that would be how you could make the toggle only show up for you. So then even your little testing toggle is there when your users are there and they just don't know about it. Ooh. And I've got I got a couple of videos that have shown some different tricks for admin only type buttons like that. All right. I think that's it for today. This video is a little bit longer than I expected it, but hopefully we're getting the mechanics, right? So now we've done a welcome screen, we've done a header, we've done a footer. And so next time we can go that final spot and do the gallery. Remember, if you want to download the app we just built together or the working demo app that does all the bells and whistles, you can go out to training.powerapps911.com and you can get it out there. You can also sign up for my upcoming live training. Actually, this video is launching on Monday and I have a class starting on Monday. So hello to students. Anyway, yeah, questions, comments, things you want to see differently or in other videos or ideas, like people like to share ways they've solved some of these problems. Leave them below. I love my comments. I appreciate those very much. So yeah, with that, I'm going to say thanks and have a great day. Hey, me again. Before you go, click on the subscribe button, right? Join the list of 100,000 plus people that subscribed already. Or if you need any help, right? Check us out at PowerApps 911. We do big projects, little projects. We do training. We do everything, and we can help you. Or if you want to see more videos, you probably do, then just click on the playlist above. Cool? Thanks, and have a great day.